I'll sign that and PDF it over when we finish this interview.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I think I'll just start by introducing kind of the study itself. I mean, what we're seeing at the moment is that upstream companies, in particular those ones that are operating in the DRC and in the Great Lakes region, is that they have to pay a premium, really, for exporting their materials. Like if they produce some tin, they need to actually pass all the due diligence requirements, and that requires monitoring of their supply chains. It means they need to know, what the smelters need to know what mines the material is coming from, and there needs to be kind of an extensive checking process to make sure that the material is not coming from an area that's controlled by an armed group, or there may be some human rights abuses occurring there. And so what I'm doing is I'm talking to companies and industry associations in the automotive, packaging and electronics sectors, because they all use tin. And I think this would be kind of an ideal point to ask, is how much tin is really being used in the packaging that your members use at the moment.
All right. Okay. Yes. Just for a minute. I've got my home office. It's got an errant wasp. I don't know how the wasp got in because I haven't got the window open. But from that, it's domestic drama here. I'm very angry at the moment. Okay. Go in. Right. You got my full attention.
Okay. Great.
Right. Sorry. So the question is, in terms of when we say quantity of tin, I guess you mean tin plate, do you?
Yes, tin plate.
Yeah, well, I'm obviously representing the United Kingdom metal packing manufacturers. So when I talk, I'm talking about the consumption in the United Kingdom. And I don't have an exact number. We didn't keep records in terms of raw material consumption, but I guess it's around about the 450,000 metric tons or thereabouts.
Okay. And I suppose, with the packages, are you working with canners of beverages as well, or is it mainly foodstuffs?
No, we represent all can makers pretty much in the United Kingdom. So we're talking about all metal packaging market sectors. So in terms of size, if you look at I use as a unit the number of metal container units produced, by far the largest market sector is the beverage can sector in the United Kingdom. That's roughly about 10 billion cans, 10 billion units. And they're all aluminium now, so that's not relevant to our conversation. It used to be, as you may be aware, Richard, that there was a split or a division between those beverage cans made out of tin plate, deep drawn tin plate, and those made of aluminium. There's been and the last factory that switched over fairly recently, switched over now to purely aluminium. So tin plate's not used in the United Kingdom currently. It could change in the manufacture of beverage cans.
Okay.
So that leaves the food sector, canned food. That's roughly about 5 billion units. Then I think around the next would be aerosols. Filled aerosols about 1.6 billion. Sorry, are you still there? Yes.
Yep.
And then the balance is general line sector. That would be the balancing number in the Kingdom. So those are the major metal packaging, tin plate consuming sectors in the United Kingdom.
Okay. And in the conversations that you have with them, do you discuss supply chain procurement of the tin plate and the minerals?
No, I don't. It's as a trade association, or this trade association doesn't get involved in any commercial issues. Now, if supply were an issue from a regulatory point of view, for example, there, as you're sure aware, currently trade sanctions being applied by the European Union to the import of a certain volume of tin plate products from outside the EU. Then I will, as appropriate, get involved as a representative for my members. But in terms of day-to-day, annual negotiations on tin plate price or availability, I certainly don't get involved. So I guess if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I think one of the interesting things for packaging for me right now is that So with the electronic sector, for example, tin is used in solder, solder is used all the way through electronics, and it's quite a big issue. And I think that in packaging, the issues are more about recycling or the waste than maybe upstream issues. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yes, it is. I mean, the upstream issues are obviously important for the, for the one template manufacturer left in the UK, who we know is Tata Steel, based in Trostre in South Wales. And they, by the way, are an associate member of my association. And just for information, but it's not relevant to our conversation, but prior to taking over the role as CEO of the Metal Packaging Manufacturers Association 3 years ago, I spent 30 years in the steel industry, all of that time with Tata Steel and its predecessor companies. Some of that time was in the tinplate business division. So, I mean, I do have a pretty good knowledge of tinplate from the steelmaker's point of view.
Okay.
But I'm saying, so obviously I have interactions with Tata Steel. They're a very active member of my association. So I am aware of the ethical issues around the sourcing of ethical tin. But I'm not aware that my members are involved in that process. But I don't know for certain. It's certainly not been an issue which has been raised. You were right when you said, Richard, that the big regulatory issue for us in the packaging at the moment is the sustainability issue, actually followed closely by Brexit. But you might say Brexit's a temporary political event, whereas the sustainability issue is most certainly an ongoing event, which is not going to go anywhere soon.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a future alliance, and a bigger future alliance forward, as it has been now and in the recent past.
Okay. So if I could just ask you my primary research question quite directly, which is, could the downstream tin consumers, such as Tata Steel, do you think they would ever be incentivized to contribute to schemes that are happening in the upstream, such as contributing to the ITSCI program or the Better Sourcing project, and they are doing the kind of mine site monitoring of the supply chain?
I can't sort of answer for Tata Steel. I mean, you did say my opinion, so I'm not sort of speaking for them.
No, yeah.
What I can say about because I am talking about Tata Steel in the UK, so there's only one template manufacturer, and that's Tata Steel Packaging, based in South Wales. And I do know from personal experience, having worked for the company for 8 years before I came into my current role, that Tata Steel have a very, very strong sense of corporate social responsibility. Sense is the wrong word. They really walk the walk in terms of their responsibilities to the various stakeholders. And they're certainly very aware of the need to source their products on an ethical basis globally. So I know that from a corporate social responsibility point of view, I can certainly, it's my opinion that Tata Steel would be very interested in having that ethical audited supply chain. Whether or not they would be prepared to support financially or in other ways, I don't know, but I do know they would be very sympathetic to ensuring that any tin is ethically mined and sourced.
No, that's interesting. So, because in general, it's quite tricky to kind of find out where the line is between being interested in something and then actually putting money towards it. Because I know that with the international supply chain, you could just choose not to source from certain areas where there is a risk. That's not what the OECD, they say that you should actually engage. You should keep sourcing from areas, but you should just be careful how you do it. Because it's this kind of proactive engagement, which means that problems get solved in the upstream. So the choice appears to be for companies to either source from the area or not source from the area, but they will have to accept the cost that's associated with that if they